jump.
Yes, of course.
Well, we're getting close to the end. We have this panel and two more, and then we have the reception with Canton.
This is the end, my only friend, the end.
And what we're going to talk about on this panel is basically BTCFi and how can we unlock, or how can they unlock 60% of the liquidity of the crypto market. We're talking about $2 trillion approximately, depending on the day and depending on the mood of the market. But it's a significant amount of liquidity that is sitting there, and we wanted to give this space to all these companies, these projects to share what they are doing, what their efforts are doing to unlock that liquidity for more functionality. So if you want to do a short round of introductions about what you're doing.
Well, I'm Diego Gutiérrez Zaldívar, the CEO of Rootstock Labs, the company that created Rootstock, the first layer 2 to Bitcoin, that was launched in January 2018. It's a merge mining network that has 85% of the hashing power of Bitcoin protecting it. So, yeah, I think we were the first mover, no, in the concept of bringing DeFi to Bitcoin. So in 2015, 10 years ago, we released the white paper, and here we are. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. My name is Zhixi. I am the Senior BD and Product Strategist at Bob, also one of the founding members. Bob stands for Built on Bitcoin. We are a fully EVM rollup built on OP Stack, also part of the superchain. So DevX and UX is exactly the same that you would do on Base or other OP chain. And we're also a Bitcoin layer 2 in the sense that we get Bitcoin security through Babylon protocol. And we're also heavily invested into building what we believe to be the future of Bitcoin cross-chain, which is BitVM, which is the technology that would enable the most trust-minimized version of Bitcoin bridges. Yeah, very excited to be on this panel with some Bitcoin L2 OGs, and passing the mic to Andre.
Sure, thank you everyone. Yeah, my name is Andre Serrano. I lead product for Stacks. I've been involved with the project for the past 4 years now. Stacks is one of the OG Bitcoin L2s, along with Rootstock as well. Really our focus is on activating the Bitcoin economy. So we allow for more flexible smart contracts that allow you to use Bitcoin in DeFi and ultimately make your Bitcoin into a productive asset.
Hi, my name is Benjamin Sturisky. I'm part of the growth team at Starknet. Starknet is currently a stage 1 Ethereum rollup exploring dual settlement on Bitcoin. And as of recently, we've had a huge targeted push around bringing as much Bitcoin to the network and aligning ourselves with the future of Bitcoin. So happy to be here.
Right. When you were doing the round of introductions, you were mentioning L2s, sidechains, BTVM. What is the approach that each of your ecosystem is choosing, and why?
So our approach is, I would say, twofold in the sense that our network is merge mined, so it's secured by the hashing power of Bitcoin. So that's one element, and I think that was what the first challenge we had to overcome. Like before that, the only merge mining protocols, they were like hitting or damaging the profitability on the Bitcoin mining side. So one of the challenges was how to do merge mining without creating any decrease on the profitability on the Bitcoin side for miners. And in that sense, because of game theory, for us it was very important that every transaction on Rootstock basically incentivized the Bitcoin miners. And that was a second decision we made, that the native asset of Rootstock is Bitcoin. So we don't have a separate token for the layer 2. So when a Bitcoin miner is processing transactions on Rootstock, they are getting, for those smart contracts and transactions, they are getting Bitcoin. So in that way, as Rootstock grows, so does the security of Bitcoin. And in terms of the functionality, Sergio, our chief scientist, was one of the 3 auditors of the EVM machine, so we knew it very deep, yes. So we knew it was very solid technology, so we choose to use the EVM. So Rootstock is also fully EVM compatible. So for example, we have Oku running on Rootstock that is running the Uniswap version 4. So all the protocols from Ethereum can be easily ported into Rootstock. So our philosophy is bringing the best of Bitcoin, sacrificing some security, of course, because we have a Turing complete scripting language. So that's bad. So that creates bigger surface of attack than the scripting language of Bitcoin. So we sacrifice a little bit of security, and we enable, both a data availability. I call it economic coordination layer. So it's basically, a place where you can set contracts or agreements between parties, economic agreements, and know that at any time you can enforce those agreements using the hashing power of Bitcoin, using Bitcoin as a native asset. So that's a little bit of the overall philosophy,
Amazing. I feel very happy to be on this space because I feel like a lot of the things that we think about is absolutely on the same track. I guess to instead of repeating what Diego just mentioned, about how important it is to be EVM compatible and also to be able to bring in like blue chip DeFi protocols like Uniswap onto the chain. We can go back to like what are the biggest blocker for Bitcoin L2 expansion. One is security. You want to be Bitcoin aligned, and like merge mining is an amazing example where miners' interest is aligned with the layers' interest. The security is aligned through that way. And for us, we actually explored merge mining when we first designed the layer, but then when Babylon protocol showed up, we decided to experiment with the Babylon protocol, which is more of a proof of stake engine of Bitcoin security, where native Bitcoin holders stake their Bitcoin into the protocol, and they will receive revenue share from what the L2 generate from sequencer fees. So this bring in like a flywheel effect where the Bitcoin staked into protocol can turn into LSTs on the chains, and the LSTs bring in DeFi activities, bring in use cases, which in return bring in sequencer revenue that go back to the Bitcoiners who provided liquidity into that system. So this way we're economically aligned with the Bitcoin stakers. So that's on the Bitcoin security side. And I guess on the building side, EVM compatibility, programmability is something that we see as extremely important. So instead of like creating something, reinventing user habit, we want to tap into existing user habit where you don't need to download a new wallet, you don't need to learn a different programming language in order to build on Bob. Not to say that the other models are not good, because I do understand Clarity is like designed for Bitcoin scaling, as well as Starknet have their own programming language with a lot of perks. But at Bob, our approach is to make sure that existing builders in the crypto space who understand Solidity can easily get onboarded into having access to Bitcoin.
Absolutely. I would say it's all trade-offs at the end of the day, and Stacks took a slightly different approach in that we actually developed our own custom consensus mechanism and virtual machine that was designed to be tightly aligned into the Bitcoin network. And so part of that includes, one, all Stacks transactions receive Bitcoin economic finality through transactions that are able to settle down to the L1. Also, one thing that's unique about Stacks is through this proof of transfer consensus mechanism, STX stakers are actually earning Bitcoin as part of that. So Bitcoin is very tightly integrated into the core consensus mechanism itself. And then with the Clarity virtual machine, it was also designed to really be able to scale Bitcoin in a safe way. And so there are some features that we implemented as part of this, such as decidability. So contracts can actually you have some guarantee of what a contract would do before it executes, which is a nice security feature. And then also, Clarity has the ability to read Bitcoin state, which means that developers can write contracts that read and react to changes on the Bitcoin L1. And so we see some of these applications really to provide a better user experience and developer experience around building on Bitcoin itself.
Yeah, so the way Starknet views this, in my personal opinion, is that there's two components. You need security, and then you need to also have an economic flywheel designed around Bitcoin. The first one, we've taken a slightly different approach than everyone else. So it's important to note that there's currently no way to trustlessly bridge Bitcoin to another network. And there's no way to use Bitcoin in any scaling system in a way that doesn't increase the amount of risk that you're taking with your approach, because until OpCat is passed through Bitcoin consensus and until you can verify Stark proofs on Bitcoin script, there's no way to use Bitcoin without taking additional trust mechanisms. And so going off of that, we've opted not to include a BitVM bridge into Starknet's implementation. And so it's not directly possible to bridge native Bitcoin to the network. It's not really possible to bridge native Bitcoin anywhere at the moment. Instead, we've basically created Bitcoin staking, which is similar to what Babylon is doing. It's just our own custom mechanism. And so you can stake 4 different Bitcoin wrappers within the Starknet validator system, providing economic security to the network while being paid in the form of Stark inflation. And so that's kind of the route that we're going until OpCat or another mechanism like collateral proofs is actually like fundamentally possible within the current crypto space. We don't want to ask people to bridge Bitcoin over. And so the part of that was what I'm trying to get at is if we can build a system designed around Bitcoin that is economically efficient, and we're doing that with our flywheel, which uses Bitcoin as a centerstone core asset, then by the time OpCat is passed and by the time there is a way to bridge Bitcoin trustlessly, we'll be leading. And that's the way I view it.
Thank you. And as each of the ecosystem grows, interoperability will become the next challenge. How do you think that will be addressed in how the Bitcoin can flow from one ecosystem to the other?
I think interoperability, well, we are the first bridge to Bitcoin in operation as well, no? January 2018, so 7 years running, up to 3,000 Bitcoins at stake, 0 hacks, 100% uptime. So we have some experience running interoperability with Bitcoin. And we achieved that because we created a federation using HSM modules, so hardware security modules, in a way that federation members cannot steal the funds. They can disrupt or stale the breach, but not steal the funds. And for that, we have a failover federation as well, in case they try to for whatever reason, maybe they are pressured to stop running the HSMs. So we have failbacks, but we understand that that's like suboptimal. It's like, it's a model where you need half plus one of the members of the federation to stay honest. And we are working on BitVMX, that is an evolutionary step of BitVM, that basically, because the problem with the original BitVM, because there's BitVM 2, I think you're working now, but the original BitVM had a problem that it was enabling Bitcoin to validate any complex condition. So it was not Turing complete, but it was replacing something similar to a Turing complete environment. But the problem was economically was very costly to do the different rounds of validation to get to that proof. So it was like in the $1 million cost or something. And BitVM 2, BitVMX is like, now the cost is like less than $1,000. So the work that Sergio Lerner, our chief scientist, did with BitVMX was like making that model economically viable, no? Not only technically viable, but economically viable. So I think we are very close, and with BitVMX we are building the union bridge that basically will make the bridge safe as long as one of all the members stay honest. And because we are adding SegWit to the peg and everything, it's like we can have a super federation. So we can have 50 members in the federation, and as long as one stays honest, the bridge is safe. So I think we are like moving again, until we have the OPCAT and, and Bitcoin evolves into, which is very hard, because that was one of the first, we knew in the white paper from 2015, we were proposing a hybrid model with the federation and everything because we knew how tough it was to change Bitcoin. You know, we knew, and we were right. No, 10 years after, it's still the same. So we don't know when that will happen, if that will happen. So we keep like pushing the boundaries with the tools we have at hand. No, and that's a little bit of what all of us are doing somehow, like trying to scale Bitcoin with the tools we have at hand. So I think that's a little bit, and interoperability of you, as you were asking, because, sorry, I diverged. But basically, when you think about interoperability, Sergio in 2012 started talking about P2 pool protocol. That was the first like proposal to have on-chain interoperability, where basically you take a payment proof from one blockchain and you validate that payment proof on the other blockchain. Then you can have on-chain operability, and it's trustless or trust minimized because anybody can create the proof, feed it on the other side, and that's it. So he was like very ahead of time, and but that's not possible with Bitcoin because Bitcoin cannot understand transactions from other networks. Actually, the peg in Rootstock is completely trustless from Bitcoin to Rootstock because Rootstock can understand a payment proof, an SPV proof from Bitcoin, but not the other way around. So we need a federation only to go back, not to go into Rootstock. So that's one level of interoperability. The other level is like atomic swaps. So that's something that also happens. That was the first interoperability option. I think some systems are doing that. And there are like other ones that when you have, where you have an intermediary, somebody that is like, you know, forwarding the liquidity on one side and taking the risk until the settlement happens. That's the case of bolts, for example. So what I think, or for example, of layer 0 that is doing that on the EVM ecosystem. So we have layer 0 integrated on Rootstock. So I expect like we will be working among us like on the different levels. It's like we will set, eventually we'll have like on-chain interoperability. So truly trustless. Trust minimization is cumbersome because, for example, to have trust minimization, you need to wait, for example, so you avoid any reorg of the blockchain. So in the case of having like full trust minimization, you have to wait in the case of Bitcoin 100 blocks, that is 17 hours. So that's why I think we will have like all the different layers of interoperability because it comes at the cost of convenience. So if you want to have like trust minimization to the maximum, then you have other trade-off. But I think eventually we'll have interoperability among the layer 2s in the different forms, no? Like fully trustless, but then very cumbersome, you know, slow, and then we will have like intermediated one, and then we will have atomic swaps that, you know, only work for a window of time. You cannot have like that operation, like, but that's my view. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so I love that how aligned we are, and so I won't repeat the part about BitVM because I think Diego already did a really amazing job in explaining BitVM, which, you know, as long as one person in the network is honest, you're able to secure the bridge. And that's also something that we're working on, and our founder, Alexei, is actually a co-author for the BitVM v2 paper. But before BitVM, the blocker I will point out for BitVM adoption is that it would take time because you would need to align enough network participant to be a part of this for it to actually work. That's also why we set up BitVM groups where we're inviting current custodians to already learn about BitVM and get educated and be willing to be a part of this. And you also need operators. I guess like a lot of the node operators nowadays who is earning from POS chains would have earning opportunities for running nodes on Bitcoin in the future. And what can we do before BitVM become fully adopted? So for our approach here is we do need solution for right now because there's appetite on the wider crypto ecosystem for BTCFi. There's incentives going to like WBTC, XBTC, all kinds of BTC derivatives on all of these ecosystem. So our approach is to adapt the most cutting edge technologies and approach on the Ethereum side and apply it for the Bitcoin. What we experienced is in last year in May when we launched our mainnet, we ran into an issue where even though our target audience are Bitcoin holders, our LPs are Bitcoin holders, it's really hard for them to get their native BTC directly onto Bob because Bob back then in May was a new chain and we were not interoperable with like most of the other chains except for Ethereum mainnet. And we also don't want our users to have to go to a centralized exchange to exchange their BTC into WBTC and then offboard to Ethereum mainnet and then onboard to Bob. So what we did is we built an intense bridge. So there's a light client on Bob which can read Bitcoin transactions and it can execute smart contract calls on Bob. And what happened from there is user will be able to go from Bitcoin into WBTC or Solve BTC or any other BTC derivatives on Bob in one click. But then we quickly realized user can not only express intent in destination asset on destination chain, they can also express intent in, I want to turn my Bitcoin into a vault position, or I want to leverage my BTC 3 times and then put it into this DeFi protocol. And because our smart contract capability on Bob, the intent protocol is able to pass on and forward this contract, we're able to execute that and make sure that user have a seamless one-click, more precise, one transaction experience to go from native BTC directly into Bob ecosystem. But from there, what we notice is a lot of other ecosystems also have the same struggle with onboarding Bitcoin and also having the same demand for one simplified user experience for getting into more complex DeFi. So now we launched this product called Bob Gateway, which is an intense bridge connecting native BTC into the wider smart contracts-based chains. And last month, we released the first edition, actually powered by Layer 0, where we marry the intense protocol, the relayer and the solver network, with the Layer 0 burn and mint logic, so that in the background, we will handle the entire flow of transferring Bitcoin, getting it onto Bob, and then bridging it into the other ecosystem. But on the surface, users just send one native BTC transaction, and that BTC transaction in the partially signed bridge transaction, it would include what the user want to do, where they want to go, and then everything will be handled. This way, we not only benefit our own ecosystem, we also become a gateway to like Unichain, Avalanche, Base, all of these larger ecosystem or newer ecosystem who face the same struggle as we did with getting native Bitcoin bridge or even just bridging to and from other ecosystem. Passing the mic to Andre.
Yeah, I would agree that Bitcoin bridging has been one of the biggest bottlenecks that we face so far in terms of seeing broader adoption of Bitcoin in institutions and into the mainstream. So our approach to that has been with SBTC, which is a federated asset with 15 institutional validators. We have one of the more transparent and institutional validator networks in the Bitcoin space that relies on Frost threshold cryptography, which relies on a 70% quorum to move Bitcoin in and out of the Stacks network. And yeah, I would also agree that I think when we look towards the next year, abstraction is going to be one of the biggest themes that I see coming, where Bitcoin has really struggled in terms of its fragmentation across all the different L2s, different wrapped assets. And so looking at ways that we can provide the secure bridging modules within a unified experience that can start to abstract away a lot of the complexities and nuances of the different bridging designs into a single app, a single experience, and just try to eliminate as much of that friction as possible as we can for the user. Yeah,
so I think that there's two components. Everyone kind of covered most of it. I mean, There's interoperability between Bitcoin rollups, and then there's interoperability between getting Bitcoin to those rollups. And on the first part, I mean, everyone in here is building cool networks, right? The end state of Bitcoin is being able to use your Bitcoin wherever you want in a very seamless way. And so that's pretty straightforward. We can use tools like Layer 0, other bridges, other bridging standards. So long as it's the same standard operating on every rollup, it'll be fairly seamless. On the other aspect, I had no idea about the Bob Intense bridge. That's actually very cool because it's something Starknet struggled with as well. If you want to get your Bitcoin to WBTC on Starknet, it's not as straightforward as you would think. You would have to go through like FalconX or a different custodian to actually mint BTC into WBTC, and you need large amounts of Bitcoin to do that. And so that there's other tools like Atomic and Garden, but they have very intensive limits, and if we want to approach people with hundreds, maybe thousands of Bitcoin, they're not going to bridge one Bitcoin at a time through different tools. And so there needs to be a better system. Maybe it's an intense bridge, maybe it's something else, I'm not sure, but it's definitely critical. And it's important that we work on very good solutions until we can have fully trustless bridges, which maybe BitVM will get there, I'm not sure. Maybe it'll be something else, but I'm fairly confident even if we can't directly manipulate Bitcoin script, which, I mean, as you said, it's very difficult, right? It never changes. Bitcoin consensus is like a very crazy beast to deal with, which is why even something as simple as opcat hasn't been able to be pushed through in many years of effort. And so, yeah, I'm very confident that there will be trustless rollups eventually. There will be several of them, I have no doubt. And then interoperability between them, so long as they're using the same framework, is going to be very standard.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to the last question. We have 5 minutes left. And this going more in the direction of, we've seen last year, the last couple of years, all the onboarding of institutional holding Bitcoins on ETF and different products, but they're also sitting there. What do you think the institutional investors will need from the industry to be able to unlock those Bitcoins and put them into a yield-generating product?
Maybe I can speak later because I speak a lot. So.
Yeah, I'm happy to start quickly. I'm going to sound like a broken record up here at some point, but I think that the main part and blocker is the fact that there's no trustlessness involved, and there's very trust minimized, but institutions are holding tens of thousands of Bitcoin, and the amount of yield and opportunity that we can offer them through using their Bitcoin in a productive way does not amount to the risk that they would necessarily need to take if it's not fully trustless. And so I will continue to reiterate that I think the biggest unlock is a fully trustless rollup and a fully trustless bridge. And an example I like to use to reinforce this is Ethereum rollups are everywhere. And Ethereum holders are a much different type of investor than Bitcoin holders. Bitcoin holders are very notorious for not wanting to use their Bitcoin unless it's a very, very trust safe way. Ethereum, people are different. They use it in DeFi, they LP with it, they bridge it to different people, different places. And Ethereum rollups are almost one of the only places now to use Ethereum. There's mainnet, but rollups, in theory, get as much attention, if not more attention, from the developers, from protocols. And yet, if you actually look at the number of Ethereum bridged to rollups, it's a single low-digit percentage of the total supply. And it's been 5 years since Vitalik released the rollup white paper. And there's several stage 1 rollups. There's very trust minimized. And yet we haven't seen the majority of ETH get moved to these because, you know, crypto people you're not supposed to trust, you're supposed to verify. And so until we can do that with Bitcoin, institutions aren't just going to trust everyone. They need to have proof that their funds are secure.
Yeah, I think that we all agree that the bridge security is probably the biggest bottleneck to unlocking that, but I would also add to that, what is the user experience? So how well does the bridge integrate within the existing frameworks and wallets and tools that these institutions are already using? So making that process as seamless as possible. 2 is, what is the actual use case, right? I think we're seeing a lot of these institutions motivated to start earning yield on their Bitcoin that are sitting on hundreds or thousands of Bitcoin and want to put it to work and bring it on chain. And we need to offer scalable ways to be able to earn yield and actually have a compelling incentive for them to bring their Bitcoin on chain. And then lastly is the liquidity. And so it's very important for institutions to be able to unwind positions if they need to, or to be able to trade or borrow in the size that they would require. And so really looking at the ways that you can tackle these problems head on It's really what we've been focused on at Stacks. You know, it's like on the yield side, we have been focused on solving this at both the protocol level and at the application layer. So working on both Bitcoin staking. We launched a new product last month where you can start to stake your Bitcoin, mint SBTC, and earn rewards directly through that, as well as through programmable yield vaults that are going to abstract away a lot of the complexity from actually deploying your Bitcoin for yield and accessing various automated on-chain strategies through that. So really just providing a easy way to be able to access those things and tackling some of those bottlenecks head on.
Yeah, I feel very conflicted actually about when Ben mentioned institution and trustlessness, because in an ideal world, I would want to see institution wanting trustless design. However, in nowadays, like at least as of right now with the technology we have, the Bitcoin holders, if they are to move on chain, they would much rather go with a trusted route where it has to be custodial, and they have to choose the custodian. They have to know the custodian, or they have to be self-custodial. And so this is actually a big question, open question that we are also trying to solve. Like, how can we educate institutions to understand what BitVM is, and how can we get them to be willing to participate in a trustless network? And before that, our approach is to basically push for and adopt the most trusted and the most, I guess, compliant assets onto our chain. So the WBTC is a very good example. Like when we first launched Bob, we were like, oh, everyone is like, are you going to launch a Bob BTC? Are you going to launch your own wrapper? And we're like, if we launch our own wrapper, we can do that easily, but how much could people trust that? Versus Wrap BTC already have huge adoption, and they're being compliant in many ways. So why don't we tap into what institution already trust and then work from there? But I like this question and can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Okay, I think we are past time, but I will try to be short. But minus 1 minute. Thank you. No, I think it's this paradox is actually one of the things that have been boggling me the most, because it's basically what we realize over the years is like our assumption was if we create something that is extremely secure, and again, we have for 7 years been running a bridge, 0 hacks, 3,000 Bitcoins at stake. So there's no safer than that, no? You have like $300 million, or well, now it's less, but something like that, there for the take. Nobody could. So it's like, it's as safe as it gets, no? But I think we are in a transitional phase. So I think what I understood over the years is that, and I think Stacks was very good at like managing that relationship with institutional investors and bringing them on board. And I think what my realization is like we will have to build some hybrid models. It's like use the security. So operational safety is more of a concern for us to scale what we are building. So than the way that people operate, because traditional institutions still wants to have an institution in front. And that's why WBTC is so successful. Basically, they did from a safety security, I wouldn't put my money in WBTC, to be honest. It's a multi-sig with 3 guys, or girls, I don't know, but managing that. Like from safety perspective, it's us, far from what I consider safe as it can get. But it has a very big institutional weight. And people trust that because there's 160,000 WBTC. So it's the most successful Wrap BTC. So you have to accept reality. No, fighting reality is very bad for you. If you read Buddhism, you will see that. So basically, accepting reality is accepting that the institutions today are not looking for safety or trust minimization. They are looking for the things they are familiar with and the models they are familiar with. So basically what we are doing with Rootstock Institutional is that. It's like creating an institutional wrapper that operates on the tools and the technology we believe will be the future of Bitcoin DeFi, no? Or BTCFi. So I think that's my realization. It's not if I like it or I don't like it. It's what it is. No?
Institutions need to have somebody to make a lawsuit.
I think we all are ending up in some form of what I just mentioned. Like, but we need to keep building our protocols. Need to keep improving the interoperability with Bitcoin, improving the trust minimization. So we need to keep that. But then in the intermediary process, maybe the next decade, we'll need to cope with the fact that you need to provide this institutional framework for institutions to be able to interact with you.
Yeah, I just thought of while you're saying that, like I just had a thought pop up in my mind, which is very important, which is like when we think about institution, there are different types of institution, because I think the general context, what we have been talking about is the TradFi institution, or like people who maybe hold Bitcoin, but they're not crypto native. They're not really understanding how blockchain or on-chain economy work. But there are also the other type of institution, which is the crypto native institution, like exchanges. And we see like very hungry appetite from them in Bitcoin and also Bitcoin on chain. And you can see that from the growth of CBBTC, KBTC. And I think 2 months ago, Upbit announced that they're going to have their own layer 2. They didn't say anything about Bitcoin. But you can see that like crypto institutions, which are extremely centralized entities, have the appetite to go on chain. And they feel threatened if they don't have exposure to the on-chain economy, which I think is a bullish thing for every one of us who is sitting here.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining. I know for some of you it's been tough to get here. So thank you for sharing what you're doing in each ecosystem.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.